see the article about I can't remember the meteors that hit over Russia, which was one in 1906, and then there was one a number of years ago.
I have it.
2013, 2014.
Yeah, I think.
But just they
Thank you.
from 1906. And then started-
Cam, you want to do a sound check?
Anyone need a hard copy?
Oh, sure. That's
Check,
check. The numbers are small.
Hear me all right?
Quiet, hang on, everybody. Say it again, Cam.
Oh, go ahead.
I just checked to see if you can hear me all right.
Okay. I'm adjusting the volume here.
Oh, these three go together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Copy? Yeah.
All right. Testing. So. Testing. We got like 1 minute.
Okay. We're good there? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call to order the Harpersburg Special Town Council meeting, February 5, 2024. At 4 p.m., all members of the Town Council are present physically. Would you all join me in standing for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda. I move to approve the agenda as submitted. A second on the motion to approve the agenda. Second from Chris. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Thank you. 7-0.
George, do you have your microphone?
Okay, under new business, discussion action. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's there before you. I want to try, council, and do as much of this meeting in the clear as possible. However, we have 3 town attorneys that are with us, and if they advise that certain discussions should be taking place in executive session to protect the town, then I'm going to request that we enter into executive sessions. And I'm going to ask the attorneys to interrupt proceedings if you believe that our dialogue is entering protective or protected discussions. I want to take a moment to reintroduce our partners who have been working incredibly hard to navigate through the many complexities to finalize our $3.3 million grant from the West Virginia Water Development Authority for our distribution system. I have to tell you that we are working on some very tight deadlines, very tight timelines that are imposed on us well beyond our control, being imposed on us by the Water Development Authority, Public Service Commission, loan filing requirements, bid submission requirements, public notification requirements, and several others. I'm thankful again for the great team of professionals that we have assisting us with this very complex project that we've taken on. Joining us today, I want to introduce, I don't think that council, maybe you have met Jennifer Wishmeyer. Jennifer is the Assistant Director of Region 9, the West Virginia Regional Development Council. Jennifer has been working with the town for at least 12 years, Jennifer. Yeah, a very, very long time. And she is one of the go-to persons that previous mayors of Harpers Ferry, also the current mayor of Harpers Ferry, relies on Jennifer immensely. She performs a service for Berkeley County, Jefferson County, and Morgan. That's the third one, Jennifer? And she's a great asset to us as we go through different types of contracts and grants and all types of things. So thank you, Jennifer. We also have our 3 town attorneys, Mr. Ken Sayer, who's our municipal attorney, who you've met before. Mr. Hoy Shingleton is our utility attorney specialist. And then online we have Councilor Cam Segrist. Cam is our bond attorney for the town. Also present is Chuck Young. Chuck is the managing partner of our accounting firm, Cox, Lida and Young, out of Martinsburg. Steve Parody is here. He's also involved in this project, our public works administrator. Mike Rock, our water commission chairperson. The budget and finance committee have been working very hard on this, also under the leadership of Storm, and it consists of Chris and Nina. And then lastly, Debbie, who has our finance officer, who has been consumed with this major project for months, making sure that all of the many tasks that are required that are all properly bundled together into a package for final submission. Now, as I see it, we have 5 major areas, Council, to discuss and arrive at decision points this afternoon. And let me go through these real quick, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to go through each one of them. First, some of you submitted questions for Council. I have those questions, and they will be directed to Council. The second one will be a cash flow analysis. That'll be principally conducted by Mr. Chuck Young. Then we will get into a discussion of milestones and timelines for this project. Then we'll, Roberta, get into a discussion on ORC, who will be charged to modify our ordinance governing a rate increase or PSC guidelines on that. And then our bond attorney will be discussing financing and RFPs and reimbursement. What reimbursement? What's the term?
Reconciliation. Yeah, reimbursement. That's good enough for now.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Reimbursement. Okay. So let me, if I may, I'd like to now turn our attention to the list of questions that some of you chose to submit. And then I'll go through these. I'll go take them one at a time. And I'm going to defer to our attorneys to address these. And I know this is going to be wishful thinking, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'd like to see if we can get through this in 30 minutes. So I don't know if that's possible or not, but I think it's a goal that maybe we should shoot at. So, all right. All of you, or some of you chose to submit questions, and let me just go through one at a time. One of them, there may be grant opportunities to fund the match for this. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but let me ask Jennifer, are there grant opportunities to fund this particular grant?
No,
the match I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I misled everybody. Are there opportunities to fund the match required for this grant? Now let me turn it to Jen.
WBA with your $2.475 million grant wants to see skin in the game, for lack of a better word. So they will require you to come up with 20% of that on their own. Use your ARPA funds and money local dollars, but unfortunately we need a little bit more of this fund to complete this. Matches for water projects in Jefferson and Berkeley counties are about what the NHI level your rates would have to be at 2% of your NHI, the 94,000 at 2020, so without significant rates when granted.
Yeah. Okay.
This is actually, this is great, came along at a great time, so, great.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, are there any opportunities for providing general funds to water that may be available under the exceptions allowed us under West Virginia Code or Home Rule? Mr. Sayer or Boyd?
I'll jump in. So, one of the questions that we're discussing and trying to come up with is how to use the general funds of the town to fund this enterprise, the water. And so I spent quite a bit of time reviewing Chapter 8, which is this code, and trying to find specific authorities that would allow us to divert funds over a period of time, basically over greater than one budgetary period. And I am unable to find any authority that would allow us to do that. Now, what does that mean to us in that case? We are a political subdivision of the state of West Virginia, and all of our authority is given to us by the state legislature. And so, without the authority to do it, we're not able to do it. Now, the other question is can we go through the home rule process and maybe create the authority to allow us to do that? Now, the home rule authority, you have to initially look at what is precluded from what you can do in home rule. And that's a fairly broad issue. You can't change the criminal laws. You can't change the annexation law. You can't change the short-term rentals. All of that's in there, but there's nothing that would prevent some sort of amendment to allow for expenditure. When I was on the home rule board, we had an issue that was similar to this, in that the town of Bridgeport wanted to take municipal funds and to donate them to the school board, because there was no authority to allow them to do that. What they were going to do in Bridgeport, great project, they were going to create this recreational facility that was going to be the school board and the Bridgeport. And that the home rule board gave them the authority to do that. However, that project never came to fruition for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I talked with Kim Halls probably about 2 months ago. He's now the city manager, was city manager of Bridgeport, now the city manager of Morgantown. He just said they never were able to get it done. So there may be a way of applying to the home rule through that whole process of doing it. So the answer is, in my opinion, as your attorney, there's no specific authority to allow us to divert those funds, just general funds. Now, I know there's another question, and we'll talk about the cell tower. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. That's a little bit different. But there's not an ability to take the general funds without some sort of authority, and there is no specific authority. You would have to go through the home rule process.
Thank you, Mr. Sayer. Number 3, are there any conditions under which town council could direct parking revenue to the waterworks?
I'll jump in on that one. Roy, if you want to take it, I'm starting, I'll follow up. So parking revenue, we're talking about the meter. And typically that money from the meter are supposed to be going to its own revenue fund to support parking within the city. Now, you also have another revenue stream that comes from the parking meter, and that's the parking tickets. Parking tickets are general fund money that you can use for anything. It's my understanding, though, that we don't have set up this special revenue account for parking. So I don't believe, again, with the same issues we have with the regular general fund, because there's no specific authority to allow us to divert that, if we're putting it into our general fund, it's part of the general fund without the specific authority. At this point in time, the answer is no. You may look at home rule, see if you can make amendments, but as it stands now, the answer is no. Or,
Of course, I'm looking at it from utility standpoint. I think all of you know, that you all have 3 cell phone tower leases in effect. They have various dates when their options by the tenant are going to run out. And I think all 3 of them, unless they're extended further, are going to run out within the next 10 years, see what more modern technology does. But all of those facilities are located on the real estate upon which the water tanks are located. And although all the real estate is titled in the name of the city of Rockford, but I think you can justify transferring that to rental income if you choose to do it as another part of it to help satisfy this project. And Ken and I talked about this. You could go so far as you chose to do so. Go back to July 1 of 2023. You're in that same fiscal year now. And you could retroactively take the income that's coming in off those leases. I'm not sure the total amount was $60,000 to $70,000 a year somewhere. And you could use that to help come up with your 20% matching.
Okay. Thank you, Roy.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Thing to say about
Yeah.
that. This council can do that. And it's my understanding that historically, that lease payments have, at least for portions of the lease, been funded over to the water department. I think that the difference between parking revenue and general revenue, this is on an asset of the water department. This council could direct that for this budgetary year, but another council could change that. So and I think Cam may have a concern about that if you're using it for an ongoing amount, because you can't bond that amount, because that's not a dedicated source of funds. It may be something that can be used to help with the math, but not the operation of the water department.
Thank you. Nina,
How long would a home rule, if we were to apply for an accepting a home rule, how long does that process take typically?
So you have to go through the public hearing process on the home rule. And then once that's done, that's probably 45 to 60 days, because you've got to put the home rule plan out to the public. And then it has to be submitted to the home rule board. Now, the board is different than it used to be back when I was there. There was a limited number. And so you're probably talking, 3 to 6 months to get that through the home rule.
could a percentage of the parking revenue be used to fund the water department revenues? I think
No.
no. Assuming the general fund could afford to contribute, could a specific amount of parking revenue from the general fund that has been accumulated be given to the Renew and Replace Water Fund as a one-time gift?
No.
Nice.
And I'm usually a yes kind of guy.
But each of those can be fixed by home rule if we decide to go that.
Okay.
If you wanted to go through home rule, we would need to sit down and work. You're gonna have to get people like Chuck to run some numbers for us. And one of the things you have to be careful with is if you're starting to dedicate these funds out of the general fund to this enterprise fund, what's that going to do to what else is happening in the town?
Well, thank you.
Totally get that.
Since the residents of Harpers Ferry have the unique income available to them of parking revenue, is it possible the residents of Harpers Ferry receive an ongoing tax rebate from the general fund parking revenue to offset an increase in water rates.
I have never in my life seen something like that. And my general answer to that, I mean, I think, and Hoy may be able to jump more in this, I don't think you can give credit to some of your customers to offset a rate increase.
That dog won't come. Throw it right out like, because you're treating the same customer to a residential customer in a different manner, you're discriminating, right?
What if the rebate was to all customers, no matter what, residential or commercial?
How are you gonna get the monthly funds to the rebate?
And then you have Bolivar and the county.
I have a question for Mr. Kinsale. If such an arrangement as you just answered about were to be handled without reference to a person's status as a customer of the water service. In other words, if all residents of this town, through the kindness of our hearts, we decided to give them a check based on some metric, whatever the metric is. Snowfall in the year, the rainfall in the year, whatever. Let's just look at that independent of the water. Would we be able to do so? For example, such as New York State in 2021 decided to rebate all taxes to anybody who had a gross family income of under $229,000 a year.
During COVID.
During COVID. County West Virginia, Jefferson County decided to give me a homestead exemption on property tax for X amount because of X, Y, and Z conditions. If we were to say, you know, this town has enough money, because we're just flush, I'm joking, but has enough money to go and shower $1,000 on each residential household in this town, regardless of its water consumption status, and with no reference to that. Would that, in your legal opinion, fly in the state of West Virginia?
That's going to take a lot of additional research. Going back to your homestead exemption, that's a state law. And I think actually in the Constitution it allows, and I'm pretty excited because I'm starting to roll up into those numbers that get the homestead exemption.
Well, I tell you, it's great.
Yeah,
That's
but
the
then
first
also there's the question about, well, what about the state of Alaska? That the state of Alaska gives a money to its residents based upon the oil that it, but that's in their state law that allows them to do that.
That's the law.
So initially, I feel like it's going to be difficult for us as the town, to start granting rebate checks to citizens of the town. I think you're going to have to figure out, I mean, one, you know, most residents of the town of Harpers Ferry, what taxes do they actually pay to the town of Harpers Ferry? There's a property tax, which is probably 10% of your property tax bill. I believe you all probably have a utility tax. You know, so that's 2% of the utility bill. Most
There's
residents,
calculations.
huh?
There's calculations.
Yeah.
So let me ask
So
you.
you're looking for a refundable credit. That's part of
I'm looking for the town to be able to cut a check to our residential households. Let me ask you a question personally as an attorney. Okay. I'm going to ask you two questions actually, and they're just yes, no answers. I know we hate that kind of thing, but first off, just off the top of your head, do you personally, as an attorney, favor this kind of approach for a town to do such a thing? And if you don't wish to answer that,
Well, no. I wish to answer, but I'd like to have more than one word.
well, I want to roll this along.
Okay, if it's just one word, I think it's no. I think it's 4 balls.
Okay, very good. If the town council and its collective wisdoms were to vote to do so, do you feel that you, as our town attorney, could do a creditable and efficient job in researching and enabling that process?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I do want to say one other thing about the tax rebate, even though we're not making it part of the water department, one of the things that we also have to keep in mind is if all of a sudden the water department is flush with money because of these rate increases, they cannot in turn give that money to the city to put into the general fund. So that's one of the issues also.
Okay, thank you, sir.
What would be the conditions under which town council could direct cell tower rental revenue to the waterworks? Mr. Sayer?
So I think and Floyd and I talked about this, that Cam wasn't on call. I think because it's on an asset being used by the water department. I think by a vote of council, and I think, and of course, you know, we talked about there may be a portion of this meeting that would be an executive session when you can't vote there. It has to be an open meeting. By a vote of council, they could do that. But it's really kind of, you know, you can only guarantee each year on, you know, you've got the 23 number, 23, 24 number, which you all can deal with. The 24, 25 number, well, since now this is probably the council was going to be here July 1, it's not an election, but you never know. And that may be a change. But yes, that's what you all can do by a vote. And that's what I think happened before, by a vote of council, some of that money was being diverted to the water department before for a period of time.
All right, thank you. What are the conditions under which town council could make a loan to waterworks? Could we consider a BAN loan, bond anticipation?
Your Honor, I think when we talk about loans from the town to the department, a public investment or public finance, that one probably is something that we should, and the attorneys discuss separately, because there's several items in that could affect not only town finance, but also the facility itself. So, you know, my suggestion would do the rest of it. And then if you want to talk about that, maybe go into executive session, discuss that, and come back in.
Can we accept philanthropic opportunities to fund capital upgrades other than Chris Craig?
Yes.
Thank you. Then lastly, while the town of Harpers Ferry is in charge of managing the water plant, the municipality itself is also a water customer. So would it be possible to raise municipal water use rates drastically higher than residential water rates in an effort to mitigate some of the impending water rate increase to residents? Essentially, give the town offices a much higher water bill that could be paid using operational funds, which cannot be used to subsidize the water plant directly. I doubt the town office is a high rate user, but we might be able to use this angle to reduce at least some of the upcoming rate increase.
I think again, the public, you cannot do indirect, you cannot do direct. Actually, that's essentially creating a false rate for the purpose of giving general revenue money unrelated to the billing system to you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, that concludes those questions. I want to go into the cash flow process. And Debbie, could you kind of introduce this issue and then turn, I guess, the specifics over to Chuck and see where we go with this?
Sure. So Chuck is gonna go through explaining what our current cash flow situation is, what we need to do in order to bring us into compliance to be able to meet our debt service, and then what else we may need to add into that budget to accommodate a loan for the amount of monies needed for the match. And give me 1 second here to pull up the, which one do you want first? Yeah, I have it. Okay.
And please go slow for us laymen.
Oh. And I'm gonna give you that.
I guess we got it on the little bit, see.
Hang on, I'm gonna give it a boost on how big it is, if I can find it. View, zoom. Not zooming tools that I expected to find.
Adobe has changed itself so many times. Thank you so much.
Okay, let me just go a little bit more too. Yep. Not sure if I had the right thing.
It's perfect, thank you.
Okay.
So we have 4 pages here, and it's 4 pages of a report that's end up being around 60 some pages long. A lot of those pages have not much information or data, but these are the full impact pages I just wanted to go through because these really present where everything lands for the most part. In other words, this is where the action happens. So the cash flow statement, we do this format. It's a pre-described format that is provided by the Public Service Commission. So they want to show like this. And actually, it is a pretty good presentation. So when we look at this, we're going to have the cash coming in, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns here. Each column has a purpose. And let me try to define each column for you. The first one is per books. And per books means basically that is our books and records as of 6/30/2023 off our annual Public Service Commission report. So you can go on the West Virginia Public Service Commission website, go down and select it and reports, type in Harpers Ferry Water, boom, it's right there. That's where these numbers originate from, okay? We have the going level adjustments, and we have going level. Basically, going level adjustments is basically to take out and say, okay, now if we had a normal kind of year, what would our normal year be after these adjustments? So in other words, we've had some, I've had clients that had insurance claims and such of that nature, or one-time big events. We make adjustments into going level, okay? Then we have pro forma. Pro forma is basically project. The whole idea of this whole scenario is take our books that we have as of 6/30/23, kind of normalize it, throw the project in. The goal is to say, hey, what would this look like if this project was up and running as of today? They do give us some restrictions on what we can include and what we cannot include. So in other words, cell tower revenues, can't include that in the pro forma because it can be diverted year to year. Parking revenues because we haven't, and same with the other items that were asked. So I wasn't able to include those. In addition, we were talking about new meters. That was up here last meeting. Says, hey, you know what? We have new meters. The flow rates should increase about 8%. I actually went through all the billing schedules and increased everybody 8%, and it makes a 5% increase in revenue. I can't use it here because it's not a historical number. The PSC is just going to throw it out. So I'm kind of limited to what I can show in those areas, but we know that those streams should be there, but I can't use it for this purpose. Let me go through everything, then I can answer all the questions, if you don't mind. So if you see here, per books, going level, pro forma, all that stuff. As you can see here, we have domestic service, fire protection, forfeited discounts, basically it's penalties. Miscellaneous, a lot of that is our billing to the PSD and a few other odds and ends. Other revenues, interest income, and interest income's been pretty good because interest rates are up. Our operating maintenance expenses, our taxes, most of that's FICA and Medicare for folks that work for us.
Then I have down here our debt service requirements. As you can see, we have the 86 or 88, 86, isn't it?
Mhm.
A, B, we have the 2008, the 21, and I have a 2024 Series A bank financing going. And these are the debt service principal and interest payments for the highest debt service years. And we subtotal, we have other debt down here, truck loan that we have, which will go away here in a few years. So, can you go back up? I'm sorry. So if we take our revenues, 864, we take out 603, we have 260,000. As you can see, our debt requirement is 310. So we're already upside down with that, 57,000. In addition to that, we're required by our bonds and all these cash, this is cash surplus that we have to fund into required accounts. 2.5% renewal replacement fund, we're required to do 2%, which is 21,000. Then, since this bond here hasn't been fully funded, we still got to put 10% in for that. So we're basically 104 in a hole, cash flow wise.
Can you point to which bond that was? Sorry.
I'm sorry, the 2021 series bond. So when you issue a bond, you get fully funded debt service or not fully funded debt service at closing. We did not fully fund the debt service at closing. So what they're going to require us to do is put 1/10 of our annual debt service into a sink fund. So after 10 years, that should be fully funded. So if we ever default on the bond, we have a year's worth of payments in it. Does that kind of make sense? That's what helps us out with this bond here and that bond there, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. So as you can see,
We have nothing in our pockets.
for the most
Less
part,
than nothing.
we have less than no. And we've gone back through and looked at the numbers, and a lot of it is associated with inflationary costs and additional staffing that we have to have for the plant.
I would point out that the last rate increase you had, the council authorized in February 18th. And your current rates are based upon a study done by Chuck and his firm for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018. That's what we used in the original study.
And thank you for bringing it up, because when we go to going level, I have another comment to make because of that.
Tuck, let me just also just remind everybody that, with Cox Holiday, and I've been watching this, but also we have finally come to a place of leveling off now that the construction with the project has been completed, and we are getting to a point of normalcy, which is how we can evaluate what is normal to operate. So that's kind of what brings us to that head here.
Correct. When you figure out how much to operate the plant, pulling more water from the Potomac, which kind of takes more treatment, we've been watching it for the past 3 years, to be honest. And we're like, all right, now we got a problem. So let's go going level. When 2018, when we adjusted the rates, Senate Bill 234, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hoyt, was relatively new. And the Public Service Commission was having a challenge dealing with it. They've come out with so many ideas, such of that nature, and I remember dealing with a few other entities with that. One of the rules back when we did it in 2018 was, it says, all right, what we'll do is a 2-tier rate system. We'll do a rate increase. All right, let me go back and explain 234. I apologize. What happened was, a lot of our PSDs were financially in trouble. So the state came out and had this bill that says, you know what, we're going to make sure that everybody has 1/8 of their operating expenses available in case something happens. Have to do a repair, have to, something major. So they're like, all right, we'll pass that.
That's
Well-
House Bill 234?
Yes, ma'am.
Senate
Senate
Bill.
Senate Bill, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Senate Bill 234. So basically, what they would do is take your operating expenses, divide by 8. That's how much money you should have on hand. So 2018, what they did is they did a two-year process. They're like, all right, we'll give you rates to get that up to that number over 2 years, then you would step down. Okay, so well, fortunately, we had enough money. We didn't have to implement because we had enough money set aside for that requirement. Recently, the PSC had an order come out and they changed on how you calculate the 234. So basically, they're saying, hey, you got to have that 1.8 come in every year.
And it's on top of your 2.5% you have in the normal place that is your bond document. This is above that.
So,
And that applies whether or not we have spent the prior year's money.
they, and the reason why they did that, they restricted it down. So in other words, you have to collect it. We have to keep that money separate. Now it's got to go in a separate account. Then they gave us this little framework, what we can use it for. So they're like, hey, we'll let you collect it, but we're going to really lock it down. And the Public Service Commission has a very detailed list.
Is it like an escrow?
No,
No. Is it interest bearing?
yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting.
That's good.
Yeah,
good.
it's,
The public policy behind small utilities in a rural state like West Virginia. They didn't have that as a tax. If a $50,000 pump blew up on the water and sewer system, they didn't have $50,000 to go out and replace it. And the Moody's, the investment environment, rated West Virginia as one of the worst utilities in the state, because in the country, because the regulatory system was starving the water and sewer system of tax that are needed to adequately take place to take care of your system. Your system deteriorates, it just gets all these keep rolling down.
and Hoy could tell you back in the day, you know, like, hey, you bought from Priority 115. Well, the Public Service Commission made sure you had like $10 in cash, but 115. And it's like, they're starving. And we had to go back to rate increases on a normal basis. But back to that story. So I have a rate increase in here, but I have this working capital requirement. And if you take 583 divided by 1.8, it's that number.
Can you explain why it's not?
I'll get to it.
Okay, thanks.
So I have this listed separately. Okay. Can you scroll down?
Equals 75,000.
Yeah. If you go down here, I have it coming right back out. So it's going to be cash in, cash out for the most. But I got to put it generating in our rates. Now, can you go back up? I just want to show you going in.
Okay,
All right.
but also why it's not in the per books line?
I thought it was finger. It's
Well, we
not in the
did-
per
we did
books.
We
We didn't have it, and we did not have to have the 234 in the per books because it's under the old rules of 2018.
but the change said, if you make a rate change, if you have 1.8 in your account, you don't need to keep contributing to it, but when you make your rate change, after that, you have to start contributing. So we've kind of been on a buy for a couple of years, not having to contribute it. But now, as we were required to make a rate change, now we've got to start again.
And we do that for a couple of years. We just kind of wanted to wait and see because we knew that was going to be a big fight on the board. So I have a rate increase in here. You can see, and I'll tell you the percentage. Actually, it was part of the package. We have to increase rates. Domestic service 174, which will late and forfeited discounts. And we have 75,000 here. You see, we have to raise up 251,000. And that will get us, hold on 1 second. I actually took off the 86B here because the 86B is a 0% bond. It already has enough money in debt service. So we don't have any funding requirement for that. Okay, scrolling down. Oh, back on the assumption, sorry. Super. So we have a positive cash. We got the 2.5% since we increased rates, that will go up. We have the remaining surplus. So you can see here, after all that, we would have 70,000 left over estimate, 167 coverage. Okay. Yes, sir.
I've been holding on to the end when you say you take questions. I have a basic running question.
Okay,
I don't understand what the going level means.
okay, going level.
And
back
then the going level adjustment. Now, the understanding that I've obtained so far from you is that the going level adjustment is an increase in payments that we are going to see because of X reason, Y reason, Z
Yes.
reason. And that when that increase takes effect,
Yes,
we will get the going level as opposed to where we are now, which is the per books.
yes.
Okay. So the going level adjustments are proposed, they are inevitable, they are in process, or they are all of the above.
Basically, you could say we're proposing those at this point.
We are proposing those. So we're proposing a rate adjustment of 174
Actually,
in the top line.
it's going to be total, if you go through the total proposal, 251, with 75 of it's going to be 234.
Okay. Now
Does
just
that kind of make sense?
sure. Now I have an understanding. So at the bottom, the percentage, 84% in layman's terms, it says to me, our shortfall is 84% of what number?
84%. So basically, that's taking the calculation. Can you go back up? So we have A here, cash available for debt service, divided by our debt service. So our cash available is 260. Our debt service is 310. So we don't have enough cash. So that's why it's 84%.
So that's not our shortfall. That's how much we have of what we need.
It's a percentage of it, yes.
So our shortfall would be 16% because we only have 84% of what we need.
But it's not only that 16%. Your bonds require you to have 120.
Right.
So you have to take that 16, add another 20 to it.
20%.
Yeah, for the bond.
Right.
Does that kind of make sense?
So the 167%
Yes.
is a proposed figure.
For right now, yes. And we could discuss that. I just want to go to the project.
Got it.
Then I'll get you, I'll try to close all that together.
Thank you.
Does that get you the going level then?
That gets me to going level.
All right, awesome.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. So pro forma adjustments. As you can see here, no rate increase on here for the project. If we scroll down, the only adjustment that we made was for the bank financing. And what we are proposing to do for the Series 2024 A bond is do a interest only for 12 months. And what we did is we calculated, what was it, the bond amount?
620.
620. We said, all right, 620 at 8%. I called a few banks around and they're like, hey, that sounds a little high, but that's not a bad number to use. So I used 620 at 8%.
You're talking about 620,000
Yeah.
as being the face amount of the bond that you have to borrow.
Right. 620K times 8% gives you 49.6. What's nice about that is that's interest only for the first 12 months. The reason why we're doing that is the Series 86A, or should be fully funded by spring of 2025.
Say that again, please.
The 86A should be fully funded by the spring of 2025.
So that means we won't have to make any more payments against that. So that amount of money,
That's right.
then we can use to pay principal on the new loan.
On a new bond. And the principal for the new bond is going to be less than that. Does that kind of make sense? So that's why we just use interest only for the first 12 months. I've ran it by a few bankers. They're like, yeah, that does make sense. They seem to be a problem. In
And the
that
other
series.
reason that it makes sense, you normally don't fully amortize a utility loan until the project has been constructed and it's operational and helping you. And so, and this project that we're doing, it's not going to be ready until sometime in 2025, probably before complete.
So with the 49.6, you can see the debt service coverage. So end of the day, just wanted to show you, 16,000
Mhm.
and 143,
Right.
8.
Right.
This number is going to be higher than your 120, mainly because of the requirement, Senate Bill 234, because it's forcing your revenues to be up higher than what it normally is. When's the last time you've seen a 150 and a 120 since Senate Bill 234?
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't see it.
It all ends up being around that number because of you're required to take that 1/8 every year. All right, so let me try to wrap that up together. Is that okay? So when we pull this together, you can see here, we don't have any cell tower revenues. We don't have any meter revenues because of the new meters. But we estimate the revenues off the new meters to be between 40, 45,000. Cell towers could be 60. Okay. We mentioned here, we can't really bond on the cell towers right now because they're not a steady revenue stream that we can for 10 years. And we don't have a history on the meters. That's a good thing. The reason being is it will take care of any additionary inflationary adjustments going forward if need be. The reason why we put this rate here in the going level, because our project is so compressed. So if we go out and do rates right now, let's say we did a two-step rate. We did a rate increase here and a rate increase here. By the time we get through this rate increase, we go do this rate increase. We might be at the end of our timeline for the project to get done by the end of the year. That's the fear.
That's the
That's the fear.
Fear.
The fear. Yeah.
1%.
What are the consequences of not going level?
Excuse me?
What are the consequences if we do not go level?
Let me talk about that. And Cam is going, who is our bond attorney, he's more in the time, but you are in technical default of your bond.
Right.
You still, because of reserve accounts and so forth, right, you still make payments. But if you keep doing that, you're gonna run out of cash. And when you're in default of your bonds, the bondholders have several things they can do. They don't want your water treatment. They want their money. And they have the ability, and West Virginia law allows them to do this, to file a suit in the circuit court, ask for a trustee to be appointed, and the trustee takes over the management of the utility system from Harper's Ferry, and would file for adjusted rates, public service commission, and so forth.
Thank you.
So the reason why we have all the rates here, if we did a two-stair step, I think these rates that you have on your sheet, and I have the summary of adjustments narrative in the back. But I think the rates, is that on the last page?
Oh, no, we didn't put that in there because that was getting way, oh, here it is, here it is. They might not have it in their packet, but it's here.
So if we did, what I have proposed here is a 30% rate increase. So you're looking at 5/8 meter minimum bill, 3850 to 5005. And you can see all the meters down below. 0 to 30,000 gallons, 19.25 to 2503. Over 30,000 gallons, 1384, 1799. Yes, ma'am.
So, again, I'm helping you read the chart. So at 38.50, that's the base rate that you pay for the water right
Yes,
now.
ma'am.
And if I use over 30,000 gallons, you're gonna add 19.25 to my bill. So, Fair?
The 3/8
No, no,
meter, this is basically going to be the 25, there's around 2503 times 2. Our minimum bill is based off of 2,000 gallons.
And so for every 1,000 gallons, after the 2,000 gallons, in the current condition, charge 19.25. With the rate increase, you'd be charged 2503 per 1,000 gallons.
1,000 gallons.
So if
Right.
you use 3,000 gallons, you're looking at 5005 plus
Plus the
25
25, right.
is what you're looking at.
Do we know what our average household uses right now?
Well, more than a third of our users are minimum users, under 2,000.
So they're already paying $50 a month.
No, they're
paying
paying
38.50.
$38.50.
They're paying $38.50.
Right. And what we did with the flow rate adjustment when we examined the usage for all the accounts, at an 8% flow rate increase, we still had at least a quarter of our accounts at minimum billing.
And you said you doubled that minimum.
No,
No,
It's
sorry.
something like 90 seconds ago, you said that 5005 doubles to 100.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the 0 to 30 rate is $25, right? That's per thousand.
Right.
Our minimum meter for 5/8 is based off of 2,000 gallons. So if you use 1,000, you're going to get charged this.
Right.
So it's still,
but also if you use 2,000, you're going to be charged the $50 because our minimum bill is $2,000. So that's where the doubling came in.
I apologize. I was
Yeah.
just thinking 2,000 gallons, you double.
And maybe this is in state law, you have to help me. 0 to 30,000 gallons,
Yes, ma'am.
where is that based from?
This
what's
is our current tier that we've had for years.
But is it based on state law that we have to have that kind of tier?
No.
No.
Okay, so what is it based on?
His average, well, I can't remember the year, but I represent a possibility and rate increase, and it's been over 20. And some folks, with many folks, that like the story talked about an inverted rate schedule. You know, normally the rate, the user of the smaller amount of water pays a higher rate per 1,000 gallons. And it's called a decreasing block revenue schedule. And that's the traditional way water and sewer have always been made. If you're in the West, where water is a premium that's inverted, the more water you use, the higher rate per 1,000. And I suggested to them that if they try that, public service, PSC has jurisdiction on these rates. If there's a protest, then they get. I said, if you do that, you may be right. I understand philosophically where you're coming from, but the PSC will probably not approve it, and that's what happened.
Okay, so we couldn't go 0 to 10,000, 0
Well-
to 20, 0 to 30. We can't make,
We could do that, but the problem is we'll have to have a cost of service
Yeah,
study.
let me. One thing we have to discuss is to get this project done. And if you get the match, you have to begin construction before the end of the calendar year 2021. You've got to go through all the process. You've got to get the PSC. We put it out to bid, and we have a bond closing, and we sign the contract with the contractor. Two contractors. If you want to change the block in your rate, you have to have a class cost of service study in order to do it, to back it up. And we, right now, and this 2026 deadline is a federal requirement, not established by West Virginia. That was part when money was coming out in the different COVID relief bills. That's in the federal legislation. To do a class cost of service study, that has to be done before you begin the rate process. With the latest project and put it in jeopardy. Let me suggest that we move forward, if you all want to do that, get this project done. Then if you all wanted to discuss some different type of rate blocking
later.
process, you could do it in a more leisurely pace when you have the chance to have more information.
And it might help these numbers that you're showing us work better.
Right.
At the end of the day, you gotta have X number of dollars every year to operate the system. How it's allocated and how it shows out to different customers based upon a different set of criteria. That's fine.
Okay.
But again, the bottom line is Chuck tells you gotta have that much cash
Too late.
in the bank.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're stuck with the structure because we got a timeline restriction.
And
And
well, there's hope for the future.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
like Coy said, we just gotta get a cost of service study. These rates have been in place, this structure's been in place for,
It's been, so as long as I know, it's been in place that I'm aware. And the last class of cost of service study done, I guess, was one done as part of the certificate. The staff looked at our rates, and there was one done back in the nineties, I think, and that's the last one I'm aware.
And it's not an atypical structure of how the rates and the revenues are generated. If you go to the PSC website and you look at all the different tariffs that are held throughout the state, they're very much like this. Where you have a minimum, the minimum might not be 2,000, it might be 1,000, it might be 5,000, it might be 2,500. And then there's an amount paid for 0 to some amount of gallons. And so this is a very typical fashion of a tariff that's used in our state.
usually see a different breakout, usually not 0 to 30,000, you'll see 0 to 5 or 0 to 10.
Right, right.
You know, another tier or two here in between is what you normally see.
But there's a lot of these too. There's good many.
And when you look at it, we do have quite a few large users. Park Service for one, KOA, school. And some of those are seasonal. That's what happened with our meters when we were going through it, the seasonality kind of made it kind of. But this is what we were saying, if we did 30% across the board, we can't really differentiate because we have to have a cost of service study. Go back up to the cash flow. And you guys got all this, right? And hopefully I didn't misspell too many things.
I'm sorry. Where do you
So
want to stop?
back down at the bottom,
I'm
right here
sorry.
at the bottom,
Okay.
back up.
Oh, there we go.
So basically what we're saying at 30% will get us to 16,000 of excess cash flow. 143. And you're like, well, 16 sounds like a lot. But when your operating expenses are over $500,000, it's not a lot.
And also, we didn't get to chat, but after talking with Pam some more about the actual bond that we acquired and the cost of bond, we're gonna probably need to put about another 30 in there or more for the bond. And so if you had done a quick flash on that, then
It should
yeah.
be,
it'll
it'll be fine.
it'll be fine. We're not
You got a 5,000.
to close out the bond.
Mhm.
Another 30%?
$30,000 to close the bond, like your closing costs.
Okay, and where would you put that in this?
You would borrow.
Borrow, it'll be put in through.
Right. And so what'll happen is that number will drop, but it won't put us in the negative on the pro forma. It'll be good.
So the 49,000 would have 30,000 added to it?
No, you take the 30,000 times by 8%.
Here, let's use the handy dandy chart, shall we?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So it's happening over there.
So it'll be
So-
$2,400 extra dollars on top.
On
of
top. Okay, thank
it.
you.
So it's not,
Awesome.
and I have a little flexibility in there. I don't have it that high.
So is it here? If you, and
Yeah,
made
it would
that
be here,
79? Okay, so let's just watch if you make this 79,600.
You're breaking my sheet.
I know, I'm gonna hit undo.
No, it's not 79. It's gonna be you
Tell
had
me,
2,400.
2,400.
you
Okay,
had 2,400 for that.
it was
Hit undo.
80.
You're making me nervous here.
I
Save
know.
as, and then call it something else.
There, just go right there, hit plus. Go out there, hit plus. Type in 2,400. And then it puts it 52.
Right, so we're still safe there.
We're still safe. Please hit undo.
He worked really hard on that.
You sure did.
Just a quick question. If we could jump back to the sort of the chart with the meters, the different meters on
Yes,
it.
sir.
For Harper's Ferry, do we have all those different types of meters? Or is that
Actually,
just
Go back to the Excel.
Oh.
Can you go back to your Excel? Can you go to the green tab? So scroll up. Can you make it a little bit larger?
Yes.
And this is data I pulled from Kuzi, which is our billing system. Usually it's a little plus sign over here. Cam's name is, but
Oh, dear me.
you're rocking it
I know.
We can do.
There you go.
There we go. So as you can see here, we got 4,358 5-inch meters. We have 12 1-inch. Excuse me, those are
That's a
bills.
bill.
Those are bills.
I could buy those.
So, yeah, so that's 1 1/4. We only had 4 reads from it. I don't know what happened. 2-inch meters, you take those numbers about 12. So you have some 2s, you got some 3s, 1s, but there's several meter sizes we don't have, but we have to have them in our tier. Somebody comes in or needs a meter that's like, hey, I need a little bigger meter. We gotta have it here.
And the average household is the
5/8.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, your average business, think about how Farm Prosperity is constructed. You have a lot of retail shops.
Mhm.
And their minimum water is almost all.
Even the restaurants or?
Well, small cafes, restaurants may get a little bit, but,
But if the restaurants are in what was originally a residential home, it's gonna have a residential meter. And that's the case in most, in the lower town.
Yeah, the bigger meters are school, park service.
And then, so when you do the meter upgrade, you're gonna change them out to the proper size, right? So that's.
well, the sizes of the meters won't change. You need more modern meters that you can read electronically and all those.
Yeah.
The issue is that the font size, the size, you know, for the most part, this size for the service that the facility is purchasing. Or for the service the facility is capable of purchasing. So we have, for example, we have park service buildings that since COVID have little to no.
Sure.
That size meter for how much water is going to know, but for the piping plumbing that was designed into that building, yes.
And part of your cost of service study will take that in consideration of capacities, because you have to supply that amount of water for 2-inch line.
Just to be clear, do any of these calculations take into account something like the hotel coming online using water? So this is all.
I cannot use it because that's right.
You have to use the most current fiscal year behind. You cannot assume.
Can't predict.
But when if and when those revenues are realized, then it can be.
Then it is, and then you might look at some adjustment.
Yeah, if it opened up yesterday, then we could probably have an argument.
Yeah.
But until we have something,
Have you done a hypothetical run of the numbers with the hotel?
I can, but I can't use it for great
No,
mandatory.
I get it, but just for fun.
Yeah, I like having fun. Yeah.
We have through historical documents provided by the hotel over the years, learned that they would intend to consume 1 million gallons a month. Right? Thank you. Yeah. So that would change things because it would really change your economies of scale, you know? Right. And we've also run studies on, well, what would that do operationally? Well, we know last time we talked about that we're operating with the 50% water loss, right? And so we are making enough right now that if we didn't have a 50% water loss, we could service that. With the current number of people that we have, right? So if we become more efficient through these changes, then adding that on is really will help us operate better. Yeah. Sure.
Right. Excellent. It was apples and oranges when I was looking at this weekend, and thank you for
Thank you very much.
putting the alphabet
It's
in
just-
order.
it's a convoluted process, but it makes sense after you look at it in that order. And I apologize. It's just if I didn't get that in front of you first to have questions, then you felt overwhelmed. Perfect.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Debbie, I believe you're prepared to cover the milestones.
Yep.
And go ahead.
Okay, so this is a timeline chart that we have put together, that I put together, and I'm going to pass around some paper because we can't see all of this on the screen.
Thank you very much.
So, 1, 2, 3, 6, I think I got 6 there. And everybody who is spoken up in this meeting today is represented on this piece of paper with a responsibility. So you guys can share. And this is a dynamic document. So the paper is to help you get started. But what I intend is that this will be on a shared drive that you will all have access to be able to view whenever you need to. And I will be the only one who edits it. So if you have a responsibility on here that needs to get done and you've made progress on it, you can send me an email and say, hey, we did something, please change my status. And I'll do that for you so it's updated so everybody can keep following along. So I want to point out a couple of this project. Doing this is really, really complex. We've got to, our goal is to get a shovel in the ground by the end of the year. Our engineers tell us you better get out to bid by June. Things can happen. You can have cost overruns. You can have delays in contractor scheduling because they're already doing something else. You can have delays in materials. So our goal is to be out the door with our bid advertisement by at least June 1. Jennifer has submitted to the WDA our request for authorization to bid, and that's what we told them in there. And we have received the authorization to bid from the WDA. So we do have some complete boxes up there at the top. In order to get that bid out the door, we need to do a couple of things. We need to secure our financing, and we need to increase that rate so that we come up to our going level and pro forma. So how do we get there? The true rate, you know, is going to be a little bit dependent on what happens with the financing, who we're able to secure and at what rate we're able to do that. So we can't really commit and put to ordinance the rate until we know what the financing is. So the first thing that needs to happen is we need to gather up that financing package. And we'll do that by an RFP. Cam, who's on the Zoom, our bond attorney, can develop an RFP for the financing, and then we can get that out the door and get that moving along. Once we've learned what that is and you're able to decide on the lender, then we can move right into developing our ordinance. And anybody who is part of knowing what this process is and the various steps and has knowledge of it, if I am speaking, if I don't have the cycle right, or if you know a step that I have missed, please tell me now, because this is a really, really tight schedule. The way I understand it, with the Public Service Commission, there are several steps that they require beyond what we would require for a normal ordinance change. The most critical of which is that the customer must receive in their bill at least, I believe it is 5 days, it might be 7 days, in advance of the public hearing that would be held for the ordinance change, a notification about the intended rate change. So this entire process hinges on getting that done and into the April bills. So you see that right here on this yellow line. And that means those bills need to be out the door around the 30th in the mail and into the hands of the consumers on the 1st of April. After that, well, just prior to that, we will have had our first reading. We will have sent out the publication to the newspapers about the hearing. Then we will have the hearing and the second reading. Then after that, we have to post that reading that we've done it outside, and that has to be sitting outside for 30 days. At the same time, it has to go down to the Public Service Commission for 30 days. After that 30 days, we have to send them proof that we put it in the paper and we did all these other things. So there's a long 30-day idle window of time there that hopefully nothing's happening. And at the end of that, we'll be able to move forward. At the same time, when we send that down to the Public Service Commission, Mr. Shingleton here is going to send a, what is it called? PSC order.
Well, the PSC certificate filed, got approval, includes all the work you want to do in this new project. We're not adding anything new. All the plans are done, all the permits are in place. But we have to notify them if our financing has changed, and of course it has. We have to notify them if there's a rate change. And we've got a rate change, but it's separate from the certificate because it's still municipal. The municipal law allows you all to make the changes and send them, and then under limited circumstances, the Public Service Commission can review the amended here.
So the original certificate case that he's talking about is when it was both parts of the project, the plant and the distribution system together. The certificate case was made and sent to the PSC.
And I will need another one PSC that blesses these changes. It's not going to require a public hearing, but it does take some time to do that.
Okay, so in order to meet this date, we have to have the financing in order. So that means that right now, starting tomorrow, and one of the deliverables out of this meeting will hopefully authorize Mr. Segrist to develop an RFP for the financing. He will present it to us at the end of the week. It is already coming forth on the agenda for Monday as an agenda request, and you can approve that RFP and we will get it out to bid the next day, or whatever you deem appropriate in terms of how you want that done, in the meeting. And we will close up that receiving those bids back at the end of February. So that's right here, 2/29. And then Mr. Segrist will review that, and we will have a meeting with Budget and Finance, the Water Commission, Mr. Segrist and Mr. Young here to evaluate the RFP, and then council will select and award that on the March regular meeting. Immediately after that, the ordinance can be changed and start to be working towards changing. And so what we will do is when we've had this evaluation period, right, with the four bodies, we'll inform ordinance review. These are the numbers that need to go in. You probably have everything else all done. Then we tidy all that up. It's already on the agenda for March. It goes in there. You approve it. You have the first hearing right there. And first reading, excuse me.
And there's no problem calling special meetings to expedite this if we have to, if we can.
That's right, absolutely right. And so there are some special meetings in here, but a lot of this fell on regular meeting dates, which was handy. So anyway, there's a tremendous amount of detail involved in this. The other large thing that needs to happen is once we secure and decide which financing group you want to go to, then we have to make that bond. And so right after you all after the ordinance gets passed for the rate increase, now that's secure. We know our financing is going to work. Now we can get our bond ordinance started to tie the financing to the bond. And so then that will begin right after that March meeting, 3/12 here. Mr. Segrist will ask for a CPA certification from Mr. Young, and then we will start working on preparing the bond ordinance. And so if all of these things work together and perfectly as we have it here, that will put us out to the street with the bid for the contract on May 15th. That's aggressive, super aggressive, down to the minute, intentionally 2 weeks ahead of what we're bound to. That's good. Okay? I didn't even get to mention that at the bottom is the whole thing about the meters going into it. So that's a whole nother thing that will be happening at the same time.
But it's a fair summary to say, even though we have to the end of the year, we have to put our right foot in, take the right foot out now.
Right, we've got to do it now.
The key is getting the bid out the door, and I give Jennifer credit. We have bid off because I'm waiting on two, that she knows about, these two big projects in Berkeley County, one of which we've been waiting for 3 months to get off.
Wow.
And so, hats off to her, she asked for it.
Okay, Debbie, do we need to, give, Roberta and Chris and George any further direction on
Right,
this?
so it seems to me, after, what we need to do now is to, council to charge, ordinance review, we're starting to work on the ordinance, get it ready for whatever rate is going to come forth. And, then, authorize your bond attorney to do the, financing RFP and also, reimbursement reconciliation. And we have not heard from Mr. Segrist yet, and I'm gonna stop the share. But, Cam, if you could, I think you and I discussed that this is an appropriate time to do this. Maybe you could speak to that.
The concept of the reimbursement resolution is simply to preserve the ability of the Harper's Ferry to reimburse itself from the permanent financing if it pays for costs of the project from its own funds before the bonds are issued. You may not have a need to do that because of the circumstances that you may not have any funds that you're putting in that you expect to get back. But we'll be doing these bonds on a tax exempt basis, and the Internal Revenue Code requires you to adopt this reimbursement resolution to preserve that option to reimburse yourself.
Anybody need more help with that?
So is that another thing you do need to direct the ORC to
No,
prepare?
no. Mr. Segrist will do it. Yeah, and he'll also deliver it by the end of the week as the same with the RFP. It is on the agenda for Monday, and you will just approve what he presents, assuming he's got his punctuation right.
Okay, so we need to take two actions, as I see it right now.
Okay,
Number one, to charge, Roberta and George and Chris, the ORC. Number two would be to authorize, Mr. Segrist,
to develop the RFP and the reimbursement resolution.
anything else?
I don't think so. Anybody else have any other things? Okay,
Can those last two be in one motion?
I
Or-
think they can be.
Okay, so somebody,
I think if you can, I think it would be best if we 3 separate motions.
That's
I
fine.
think that's better.
Okay.
Fine, Ally.
Plainer.
I move to have the ordinance review committee revise the ordinance relating to Article 905 regarding water rates.
Before we get a second on that, is there any? We covering it?
Is that really what you need to say?
I see
I-
Mr. Sayre.
Yeah. What you're doing right now is just getting it ready so that when we know exactly what the rate is, all you gotta do is plug the numbers in and go.
So we're satisfied with that motion, right? Now I'll take a second. Is there a second on the motion, George? Any discussion on the motion? Chris?
Are we gonna have some guidance on this? This is not your typical,
Yeah, that'll be a close
So-
number.
Yeah.
Okay, so if y'all need Pam and Hoy to join you in your preliminary meeting or whatever, then we can arrange that, yeah.
Essentially, what you are at, the ordinance is essentially the tariff,
Mhm.
and it's just an update on.
So we're merely changing the numbers.
Yeah.
And some dates and, yeah,
Okay, well,
And there may be some miscellaneous things in your tariff, that are not provided by the charge that need to be updated, I have to look at. To deal with, current, industry standards.
well, guys, given some of the issues that have been with our ordinances and other matters, it'd be very good to have you there at the same time to find out if we have some vestigial organs hanging around. That would drag things down.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. That'd be 7-0 unanimous. Opposed, none. Okay, the second motion would, authorizing Mr. Segrist, developing an RFP and
for financing
for finance.
and a reimbursement. Just do the financing, sorry.
I move to authorize the town's bond attorney to create the RFP to finance the match for the WDA grant.
Okay, before I ask for a second, is that recovering that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, there's a second on the motion. We have a second from George. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? None. 7-0 unanimous. Second, Storm.
I move to authorize the bond attorney to develop the reimbursement resolution as it pertains to the funding of the WVA project.
Same as before I call for a second. Is there any issue on that? Second on that motion. We have a second from George. And short, you gotta get your hand up quicker, Chris. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 7, opposed, 0. Now,
I think what you said, in case, unless anybody has any other thing that they feel like they want to discuss with this particular subject.
I just want to say if the notice of bill increase is going out around April 1st, we should make sure that it's clear it's not an April Fool's Day.
good job.
And just want to say thank you, Deb. You just know how hard you've been working on that.
My pleasure.
Okay, move to old business, ORC committee report. Do you have anything to report, Roberta?
What I'm gonna do for this. Hold on.
Attorneys in general, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you leave us cards so that we can maybe call and get some dates so we can have you meet with us, please?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. How much longer do you guys?
Roberta, how much time are you gonna need for these? We have, council needs to have another meeting.
How many minutes we would do?
2 cents.
She said.
I can get you hooked up with them. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, first, okay.
Go ahead, Roberta.
First, I apologize for wasting the time of the members of town council and the staff regarding, items number 1 and item number 2 under old business today. I understand because these agenda items do not say discussion and action. I am in checkmate and I can't go any further on items 1 and 2. So I, concede that, at this time, nothing can be said on items 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you. How about item mission statements? Who's got that?
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we stating that I believe that we need discussion and action on items 1 and 2? We don't have discussion and action. And so
Correct.
perhaps what we would need from the council is an opportunity to discussion and action.
I would agree with that statement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just want to clarify that. We need that for next meeting.
Okay, Storm.
Could we like to move forward?
Sure.
If I may, like I did look up, like it's specificity of, it needs to be clear to the public what is being brought forth. It's more than just saying discussion and action. And if you would like, I did print out the, because we want to get to yes on things, but it has to be done in a way that comports with the Open Meetings Act.
Okay. Who's got the mission statements? Or are we going to defer that? Or?
I mean, we finished the edits that we've received. We met earlier today, went through, reached another consensus regarding the 3 mission statements. We provided them to the group at large. It's been put on the agenda for Monday, or proposed to be put on the agenda on Monday to then be taken action on. So
That's fine.
we only received feedback from you. I'm not sure if anyone else had feedback. So
Okay.
that was it.
All right. Anything else on those 3 items? All right, Chair, will entertain a motion for adjournment then.
Most people are doing.
Second. All those in favor?
All right.
Roberta?
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. 7-0, opposed 0. We are adjourned. 5.